Good morning. Hey everyone, RT Bear here coming to you live from Hack Shack Studios, where the comic book magic happens right here. Um I'm not really sure how to start this. I'm not really good with too much of this stuff, but I kind of wanted to get right into it. One of our own, Jim Shooter, editor in chief, Marvel Comics, has passed. And Like I said, I don't really know how to talk about this stuff. I'm horrible at this stuff, but I do feel he's done a lot for the comics industry, and I thought we should pay tribute to him and his contributions to this industry. And there have been many. He has had his fingers in Marvel, DC, independent, Valiant, you name it. He's worked on it. He's created it. I was going over some of his resume stuff, and I didn't realize that like Feral Lad and Karate Kid, he created from the Legion of Superheroes. So he's created quite a bit. I got his Wikipedia. It goes on for a long time, so I'm going to go through that just in case you guys don't know who Jim Shooter is and don't know all of his contributions. They are many, and they are all in that Wikipedia. Um, and I'm going to share some stories. I met him a few times, and I was thinking, you know how you do when stuff like this happens. Like, what was your interaction with him? What did you think of the person? You know, all of those things. And I started thinking, really, the only reason I'm doing comics or got professional work in comics is because of Jim Shooter, and it's a lengthy, lengthy, it's a lengthy story. And I will tell it. I have told it before, but I'm going to tell it with a slightly different perspective. I'm going to tell it from like more like the Jim Shooter angle of it, and go over that. It's kind of funny. I think it's interesting, and I don't think anybody else has a story like mine as far as breaking into comic books, especially the mainstream. So let me touch base with you guys before I go any further. We got Leg Kick One. Hello, hello. We got Sean Thompson. Thompson. Good morning. I wanted to call this a morning hullabaloo, but I felt like it was a little too festive. We got Joe Bernardo. Aloha. What's up, brother? Let's see what Sean has said. I met him in 2019, and he was so nice and awesome to me. I kind of got two perspectives on him. Excuse me. I never really, well, I guess the first time I met him, I wasn't a working professional. So I have that point of view, and then I have as a working professional. Uh, Andino says, I'm here, nerds. There's always something with that guy. Yes, Jim Shooter passing has made me very sad. A piece of my childhood and many others is now gone. Um, yeah, a lot of people remember his tenure as editor in chief at Marvel Comics as a really, really good one. Like the books were good. People enjoyed them. It was a little bit. I got dates and stuff like that, so I'll try to like let you guys know where I came into the picture, just so I think it's my show, so I want to interject myself into the story as much as I can. But no, I'm joking. I'm joking, but kind of serious. Uh, uh, yeah, people have fond memories of him. Some professionals think he was a little bit of a hard ass. So I got a little bit of a mixed bag as well. So let me see. Leg Kick says, I just read some great stories from Rubenstein, Simonson, and Claremont. A lot of those guys like Claremont and Byrne and stuff, they were and Simonson too came up in those times where Shooter was running the show. Let me go here, and just in case you guys don't know, we'll give you a little backstory on Jim Shooter, and kind of go over his contributions to this industry. I think it's best to do it with Wikipedia because I can't put things in any kind of chronological order, and that's one of the best things about Wikipedia is that's what they do. So James Charles Shooter, born September 27th, 1951. He's he's 10 years older than I am. So I was born in 61 in October. And so he just passed that was that yesterday, I guess. Yeah, yesterday. Um as American writer, editor, and publisher in the comics industry, beginning his career writing for DC Comics at the age of 14. He had successful but controversial run as editor-in-chief at Marvel Comics and launched comics publishers Valiant, Defiant, and Broadway. So just right there, if he did nothing else, that's pretty impressive. I wonder if you can, yeah. There's a bigger image of him. This is later in life. This is not the Jim Shooter I remember. The Jim Shooter I remember will look more like this. with the beetle bangs. He had the beetle bangs. And but anyway, his early life, we don't really need to get into that too much. He was a big comic book reader, stuff like that. He has a similar backstory. He spent some time in the hospital, and that's when he started reading comics and things like that. And that's when I got back into comics, and drawing comics was when I was in the hospital for a long time, in and out for a couple years. At the age of 13, what were you guys doing at 13? 1965, Shooter wrote and drew stories featuring the Legion of Superheroes and sent them to DC Comics on February 10th, 1966. I was 5 years old. 66 was good because the Batman TV series and all that good stuff. Marvel had just launched and had been going strong for a couple of years now. He received a phone call from Mort Weisinger, who wanted to purchase the stories Shooter had sent and commissioned Shooter to write Supergirl and Superman stories. Keep in mind, he's 13 years old. I wonder if Mort knew how old he was at the time. That would be a good question to ask good old Mort. Mort eventually offered Shooter a regular position on Legion and wanted Shooter to come to New York to spend a couple of days in his office. Shooter, who was 14 and lived in Pittsburgh, had to wait until school was in recess, after which he went to New York with his mother. He's 13, 14 years old, spurred in part by the need to support his financially struggling parents. So he was very altruistic. He wanted to do this to bring some money into his family, to help his family. According to Shooter, his father earned a little as a steel worker, and Shooter saw comic book writing as a means to helping economically. Shooter reflected in a 2010 interview. We don't really need to get into that. At 14, Shooter began selling stories to DC Comics, writing for both Action Comics and Adventure Comics, beginning with Adventure Comics. I know they didn't have a lot of titles back then. There weren't as many titles as there are now. So there were only really the cream of the crop titles, in the 60s. But man, you talk about starting at the top of your game or at the top of the game, the Superman characters, Action Comics, Adventure Comics. This is pretty crazy. And he was providing pencil breakdowns as well. So he was writing and drawing these stories. With considerable study of the writing style of DC Comics and of the recent rising Marvel Comics, Shooter created several characters for the Legion of Superheroes that benefited by him being one of the few writers at DC to understand the competitor's successful character-based narrative approach. This included Legionnaires, Karate Kid, Feral Lad, and Princess Projectra. I wonder if he created her costume. Holy crap, man! Those Legion females, man, they had some crazy outfits. Sorry, I had to take a drink. As well as villainous group known as the Fatal Five. I dug the Fatal Five. They look cool, man. He also created the Superman villain Parasite. Wow. In Action Comics 340 and 66, shooter and artist Kurt Swan devised the first race between the Flash and Superman, two characters known for their superhuman speed. In Superman's race with the Flash in Superman 199 in 67, Shooter wrote the first issue of Captain Action. Wow, that's my character. That's my jam when I was a kid. That was the toy of the mid '60s. He was basically he was like a GI Joe that could turn into superheroes. Um, and so, oh, it says DC's first toy tie-in. So Captain Action was the first DC Comics tie-in. I think Ideal Toy Company made Captain Action. And if you guys don't know, let me see. Maybe we could go on a deep dive. Captain Action was a action figure in '66 equipped with a wardrobe of costumes, facial masks, allowing him to become Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Captain America, Aquaman, the Phantom, the Lone Ranger, and Tonto, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, Sergeant Fury, not Nick Fury. I think Sergeant Fury because he looked like a GI Joe, Steve Canyon, and the Green Hornet. Captain Action was the Ideal Toy Company's answer to Hasbro's GI Joe. I think the same guy that created GI Joe created Captain Action as well. Oh yeah, it says both toy lines created and designed by the same toy and idea man Stan Weston. Captain Action also had a working 4-foot, wow, I don't know what those meters are, parachute. Wow, that's a claim to fame. So it's got a little bit of backstory on there, so I don't want to do too much of a deep dive. I do think that they made a Spider-Man Captain Action, and I think it was the first licensed Spider-Man toy ever was the Captain Action toy. So little claim to fame there. 69 Shooter was accepted to a New York university, but after graduating from high school, he successfully applied for a job at Marvel Comics. Unable to pursue both his studies and work at Marvel, he decided against going to New York. Also, I think the family needed money and stuff like that, and quit working for DC as well. While at Marvel, Shooter worked as editor and occasionally co-plotter, taking his residence at the YMCA. Man, he was living at the Y. After only a couple weeks, Shooter gave up the post. Man, this guy wanted it bad and returned to Pittsburgh. So, how old was he at this point? When did he break in? Was it the mid '60s? 66. So he's been working for a year or so. 69. Yeah, 69. So maybe like 2 years after leaving Marvel. Shooter took up working in advertising. Advertising pays a lot better. Let me see. Let me skip through this. Opted to return. So he came back to DC Comics. They had offered him prestigious assignments, Superman, and a chance to again write for Legion of Superheroes, now in their own book, Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. However, Shooter's relationship with both Superman editor Julie Schwartz and Legionnaire editor Murray, was that Bolinoff, were unpleasant. And he claimed that both forced him to do unnecessary rewrites. In December '75. Marvel editor-in-chief Marv Wolfman called to offer Shooter an editorial position. I think Marv was editor-in-chief at Marvel at the time. Let me see. Marvel Comics in the mid '70s was undergoing a series of changes in the position of editorial or editor-in-chief after Roy Thomas left or stepped down from the post to focus on writing. A succession of other editors, including Lynn Wein, Marv Wolfman, Gary Conaway, and Archie Goodwin, took the job during a relatively short span of time. Wow, that's pretty crazy. Only to find the task too daunting as Marvel continued to grow and add new titles and a larger staff to turn out material. In '76, Shooter joined the Marvel staff as assistant editor and writer. With the quick turnover at the top, Shooter rapidly found himself rising in the ranks, and on the first working day of January '78, he succeeded Archie Goodwin to become Marvel's ninth editor-in-chief. During this project, publisher Stan Lee relocated to LA for Hollywood stuff. And let's see, although there were complaints among some of the Shooter opposed. Okay, so some of the editorial staff had problems with his dictatorship during his run, and he cured many of the procedural ills at Marvel, successfully managing to keep the line of books on schedule, ending the widespread practice of missing deadlines, popularly known as the dreaded deadline doom. Added new titles and developed new talent. Shooter, in his 9-year tenure as editor-in-chief, oversaw Chris Claremont, John Byrne's run on Uncanny X-Men, Byrne's work on Fantastic Four, Frank Miller's series of Daredevil stories, Walter Simonson crafting the Norse mythology with Marvel Universe and Thor, and Roger Stern's run on both Avengers and Amazing Spider-Man. Yeah, that's pretty killer. In '81, we're starting to get into Art T. Bear territory. In '81, Shooter brought Marvel into the lucrative comic book specialty shop market with Dazzler #1, featured a disco-themed heroine with ties to the X-Men, based upon an unmade film set to star Bo Derek. I wonder if she could roller skate. Let me see. I don't need to get into Dazzler. Shooter wrote Marvel Treasury Edition, which featured the second Superman and Spider-Man in company crossover. So he did the second one. Actually, in '81, Shooter was recognized as one of 6 New Yorkers of the year by the New York chapter of JC's for his contributions towards revitalizing the comics industry and helping Marvel Comics achieve a new pinnacle of success. Shooter also institutionalized creator royalties. They're not called royalties, though. They're called incentives. At least they were when I worked there. What is this? Citation needed, references, reliable sources. Okay. Starting the Epic imprint, which was freaking killer. The creator-owned material in '82 introduced company-wide crossover events with Marvel superhero contests of Champions, Secret Wars, and launched a new, ultimately unsuccessful line named New Universe to commemorate Marvel's 25th anniversary in '86. That New Universe was horrible. I'm sorry, Jim. Despite his success, let me see. Shooter angered longtime Marvel creators by insisting on strong editorial control and strict adherence to deadlines. Although he instituted an art return program and implemented a policy giving creators royalties when their books passed certain sales benchmarks or when characters they worked on were licensed as toys, Shooter occasionally found himself in a well-publicized conflict with some writers and artists, creators such as Steve Gerber, Marv Wolfman, Gene Colan, John Byrne, Doug Munch, and left to work for DC, encouraged by its new publisher, Jeanette Kahn. Let's not forget Dick Giordano, aggressively talking uh, uh, advantageous or advantage of the opportunity, taking advantage of the opportunity. I'm sorry, or other for other companies. Let me see. Let's see. I'm looking for. He initially had to conceal North Star's sexuality. Uh, bu- 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 Roy Thomas left Marvel following contract dispute. Johnny Ramita Sr. said Shooter had been great for the first 2 or 3 years. He got the creative people treated with more respect, got us sent to conventions first class with our ways paid, and we thought the world of him. Then his Secret Wars was a big hit, and after that, he decided he knew everything and started changing everybody's stuff. Yeah, that's what I heard too. I had a little conversation with him. I'll get into that once I'm done here. John Bird said Shooter came along just when Marvel needed him, but he stayed too long, having fixed just about everything that was wrong. He could not stop fixing. Around the time I left to do Superman, I said that I thought Shooter and Dick Giordano should trade jobs. Dick was great. Dick was editor in chief at DC Comics. He was a great man. Shooter, wow, there's two guys. Wow, I'm so blessed and lucky. I knew both these guys and they both helped me out greatly. It was DC that needed fixing then, um, and do so about every 5 years or so. But to be honest, Dick did fix DC with that year one stuff and the what was it, the Crisis on Infinite Earths and all that stuff. But it was not Shooter's Secret Wars was when the trouble really kicked into high gear. We must never forget that Secret Wars began the toy promotion. Shooter turned it into a way to reshape the Marvel Universe in his image. Valiant was founded Voyager Communications. They first did the Nintendo books. I remember when I met Joe Quesada, he was working at Nintendo. And actually, a good friend of mine, Mark Basilla, was working there too. They were doing, what was the book? I forget what the books were, but they were Nintendo based. And yeah, so they got the Gold Key comics and they got Magnus Robot Fighter, Solaris, Man of the Atom. They got Bob Layton and Barry Windsor Smith, and started doing more original stuff. Uh, yeah, they did pretty good. Defiant and Broadway Comics came later. I think he was one of those guys. Like there's these personality types that the personality works for certain things. Like they can build it up to a certain point, and then their personalities, the same things that made them popular or made them successful, are the same things that kind of destroy them. So strong personality types, being a dictator, things like that. When there's a need, it kind of works, but when there's not, it becomes a hindrance. And I think that's kind of what Shooter became. And I'll get into my Jim Shooter story soon. Let me see where you guys are at. Wow, you guys are on the move. Do 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 do. Joe says Jim Shooter had a mandate that no stories made more than 3-issue story arcs. I think that they should go back to that. There were a lot of good ideas. Randy Howe says, I shared the link on Twitter. Thank you. And if you guys could give me a thumbs up. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so. And also share out on your social media. Let's get some eyes on this. Good morning, everyone. Pedro Ang just turned in the last of Black and White High Octane 2. I gave him some notes, and then we just gotta start lettering the book. But pencils, inks, colors, pretty much done. 22 pages, and they look fantastic. Randy Howe says, Art, you have to share the link out on Twitter. Okay. What you guys tell me to do, I do. Let's see. Paste. Let me see. Okay. Okay, let's see. Let's go, people sharing stories about Jim Shooter. All right, let's see if this works. Oh no, that's not it. Oh my gosh. I know why it didn't work. Let me pull this down. Okay, I'll do this right this time. I gotta do it this way. All right. I'm such a dork. Okay, I got it now. All right. All right. See, as soon as you throw a wrench into things, everything falls apart. Um, okay. I'm almost there, guys. All right. Get in here, people. Sharing stories about Jim Shooter. There's the link. All right. that was not fun. All right. So I did it. Thanks, Randy. Let's see. Joe74. I don't believe Hasbro's largest toy franchise would be as big as they are without Jim Shooter. I remember those toys. They were pretty cool for the time. Wait a minute. Use that share button. That includes you, Art. Okay, I did it. Stop yelling at me. The comics helped sell the toys a lot. Yeah, I mean, he was. It's like I said, the best things sometimes that make something big and popular are the same things that can destroy it. It's a personality trait or personality. So if it's in a certain direction, it can be beneficial. If not, doesn't work. Less titles would likely sell more. Yeah, they didn't have a lot of titles back then. Thanks, Randy. Click this link. Go check out Black and White, my book. Hello, Randy. Randy's got some fans. Apex Comics. I remember Shooter drawing a few issues of 3 different Marvel titles. You know what? I wonder if he was any good. I should check that stuff out. Deb Koff, Shanaley? No, not Jim. Yeah, sadly, Jim has passed. He wasn't even really that old. Because if you think he's 10 years older than I am, I might only have 10 years left. You guys click this, go check out Fembat. It's on Fund My Comics. R.I.P. Farrellad. I dug all those Legion characters. Schwartz, Yep, that was his name. House of R. Hello, Art and Chat. What's up, brother? Howdy. What is that? E6022 times 1023. Sounds like some kind of tax form. Sounds like a tax form that you have to fill out. Crazy Cat. Welcome, brother. What's up, Art? Yeah. Edwin Buzz. How are you? We got a party going on here, you guys. That's awesome. In 81, Art was making horror films in a stranger's garage. That's neither here nor there. Uh, yeah, Vernon Butts, the Freeway Strangler. Him and his buddy. Oh, my art site. Thank you, Crazy Cat. You guys can click on that. Go get some original pages. Flatty One, A New Universe felt like 80s prime and primetime television. It was weird, man. It was strangely out of tune before it even launched. Like the inception, the idea was already out of tune. I remember seeing that because it was kind of hyped up. I was before it was before I was working professionally. So I remember, there's a lot of hype, new universe. Wow, this is cool. And I picked up some of those books. I was thoroughly disappointed. It was horrible. Con, you bloodsucker. Terror Wombat. I remember Jim Shooter's blog back in the day. Great stories there. He knows everybody. He's done everything. Randy said, Art said he was born in October of 61. Perhaps that means in 1961 BC. No, I am old though. So Jim Shooter went power hungry. Who hasn't? Um, yeah, I guess it was power hungry. I actually think he thought he was doing good. Let me try to catch up with you guys. This is awesome. Not popular but successful. At least not popular amongst artists. Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's always going to be that, especially people that also have egos, like all those names that were in that Wikipedia. Those are big names, so uh, when you're on a certain level and you think you know what you're doing, you really resent being micromanaged and told how to do things, and that will always ruffle some feathers. So there's certain people that you might need to do that, be heavy-handed with, and there are others that you should just leave alone. I remember I had an editor that was really, really heavy-handed. I had a lot of problems with him. He had trust issues. He was just a really horrible, horrible guy to work with. And I tried to lay down a hint early on. And I said, you're turning this job into, like no fun. Like this job is no fun. And he goes, well, it's work. It's a job. And I said, I've been doing this for decades now. I said, it's fun. I could work in advertising and make 3 times the amount of money I'm doing here. I said, the reason I work on comics is because it's fun. I like the people. I like to draw comic books. It's fun. And so then, he kept going, and I said, I can't work like this. And it's the first time. There were a lot of other reasons, but the first time I ever went above an editor's head, and I'm friends with Bob Harris, who was editor in chief at DC Comics at the time, and I called him up and I told him about this guy. And I said, this guy doesn't trust me. I told him, up to that point, I think I'd been working in the industry for 30 years. I said, you don't get this far in the industry by not making deadlines and doing the job. I said, there has to be a level of trust. You have to give me a deadline and trust I'll get it done. If I don't get it done, then you can yell at me, but you don't yell at me, all the time. You don't constantly, call me out for stuff I haven't done, And so shortly after, he got fired. So most likely it wasn't just me complaining about this guy. Yeah, that guy was a jerk. I think that his idea of new universe could have worked if they had more input from the creatives. Yeah, because it was like it was his new universe. Um, so I agree. If it was more like Image Comics, where everybody got to have input or whatever, create stuff, but he wanted to control it. It was ego, definitely was ego. Hey, Mike, Art's such a nice guy, doesn't belong with the other CG. I don't know about that. I can be a, I can be a dick. Howell says, "Oh yeah, yeah, you guys, click this link. Go check out The Bad Guy. That's Clint Helinsky's book. He is one of the pontificators, and he is a good guy and a really good talent. And you talk about somebody who doesn't need to be micromanaged. That guy gets shit done. He gets stuff done. Let me see. Joe says, I met him briefly at Heroes Con last year and thanked him for bringing the mega crossovers and big team ups of superhero groups like X Men, Avengers, FF versus villains. He said, thank you. That's what I do, Joe. Like when I meet people that I really like and have influenced me, I always thank them for their contribution. Yeah, I think it's the best thing. Like if somebody came up to me uh, and was just kind of being uncomfortable, just say thanks for the work, and then that's really all you need to say, and then yeah, move on because sometimes it gets a little weird. I've met Gene twice at Heroes Con. Last year, I spoke with him for 3 hours. Wow, we ended up talking about our kids. He's a great guy. Let me see. Randy says Black and White Volume 3 is 107 away from 36K, you guys. Also, that means we're closing in on the next stretch goal as well. So thanks, Randy. I appreciate that. He was very giving of his time. It was very nice. There's a lot of really cool people in this industry. And Dina says Art got an editor fired. I don't know if I got him fired, but he got fired shortly afterwards. So I think there were a lot of other reasons. I can never say. I'm just going to say Reynolds. It's Caleb. I think that's how you say it, Caleb. Woo. What up, Art? Man, Art. Held the chat. What's up, brother? If that's a picture of you, man, nice hair. New Universe funding was cut. I wonder how many years that thing ran. Too many years. It was supposed to have top talent. They did have some pretty good talent on those books, but I remember it seemed very mediocre, and none of the characters seemed to connect with me. At least they seemed like they were pandering too much of the time, like they were trying to be too hip and too, I guess, of the time. That's the only way I can think of saying it. Uh, Art, you can't even say dick normally. Keep fulfilling those campaigns, and I will keep supporting it. Dick. Santiago. Wasn't he fired from Marvel at the same time he was in talks with Marvel buying DC? It is that it's not in the Wikipedia. It seems like something that big would be in Wikipedia. Hey, Passmaster, dude. Uh, Sean Thompson. He talked to me for wow. You guys have had some good run-ins with the man, the myth. Uh, he had a young Will Spertaccio on Starbound. Yeah, actually, all of the West Coasters started coming in late in Shooter's run. So when did I? It was probably mid '80s, I think, um, when I started working at Marvel. And so I'll tell my my Shooter story. Okay, so this has got to be like 83, 84, something like that. We used to have these creation comic cons, and I'm really dry. Um, and they would travel all over the place, and they'd have different comic book people and stuff. And Jim Shooter was there, and he was doing portfolio reviews and things like that, riding high at Marvel. And so I was working independently. So I was working for Warp Graphics, Apple Comics, doing some indie stuff, working with Jim Valentino in his studio, things like that. But the money wasn't great, and at some point it stopped coming in altogether. So I was out on my own. I needed to pay rent, all that stuff. I had a live-in girlfriend. So just talking about, different people. And I knew Rob Liefeld at that point before we broke into the industry. So there was a little bit of like a Orange County network that was already growing in comics before Image Comics. And so yeah, I was at this con and talking to Jim Shooter, showing him my portfolio, and I guess there was something there that he liked. He looked at it. It wasn't much of a portfolio, to be honest. I don't know how I got as far along as I did, but he said, I remember it like it was yesterday. He said, if you're ever in New York, he said, look me up, and I can get you into the bullpen. So I think it was Johnny Romita Sr. that was overseeing the Marvel bullpen, the legendary Marvel bullpen. And the Romita Raiders were that's what they were called. That's all. And they would do art touch-ups and things like that under the leadership of Johnny Romita Sr. And so I was like, oh, cool, because I knew about the Raiders, and I knew about the bullpen and all that stuff. So that's kind of as far as it got. So he just said, if you're in New York, look me up. You could use some tutelage. You could use some training. He said, you got some good stuff going here, but you need some training. And so I was like, oh, cool, man. This guy's offering me a position at Marvel Comics. That's great. And so things started becoming more unraveled, working with Valentino. And it wasn't Jim's fault. It was the publisher's fault. Jim was in the same position as I was. He wasn't getting paid either. And so he started even working towards a mainstream comic career. I think that's when, a little later, you got Guardians of the Galaxy, things like that. But yeah, so through Jim Valentino, I met Craig Anderson, who's the son of, I forget the Anderson's name, that created Marmaduke, the comic strip. So he didn't have a place to stay at San Diego Comic Con, so we put him up in our hotel room. And then mistakenly, like, people, they don't know when they say things to me. When they say things to me, I take it to heart, man. And so he said, hey, Art, once again, if you're ever in New York City, you need a place to stay, look me up. And so I was like, cool, because we didn't charge him for the hotel room. He needed a place to stay. So it was just kind of like he was just doing me a favor, most likely thinking it was never going to happen. Same with Jim Shooter. They probably just said this stuff to me just to give me some kind of hope or whatever, but never really thinking it was going to happen, that I would call their bluff. So anyway, I think I told Craig I'll do that. And so then I had a job, full-time job, while I was working with Jim. not getting paid. And so I saved up enough money to get a ticket to New York City. And so I had never really traveled at all. A friend of mine uh, moved from California to Florida, and so his mom was well to do, and she flew me out when I was 12. So I flew to Florida when I was 12, and went to Disney World. So that's pretty much all my traveling. So New York City is not Florida. It is a beast. And so I fly in and come up the subway during rush hour. It was crazy, trying to figure out where to go. And I showed up at at Craig Anderson's doorstop. So I'm there. I got to start moving this faster to get to the shooter stuff. So anyway, he felt sorry for me, put me up, and I was there for like a month, way too long. I way overstood my welcome. But anyway, so I go into Marvel with him. No, I didn't go into Marvel. No, I went into Marvel that same day because I still had my luggage. So I didn't. Craig was at work. He was at Marvel. So I did go to his apartment, Craig's apartment. He wasn't there. So obviously he was at work. So then I went over to Marvel and tried to get in the building. I sweet talked my way in, and then the next floor, the Marvel floor, they weren't going to let me in either. So I sweet talked my way in. Actually, I was just probably really pathetic and sad because I was like, I flew all the way from California to see Jim Shooter, and they're like, I don't have anything on the books that say, a meeting with Jim Shooter, so I can't let you in. And I was like, I flew all the way from New York to see him. He said this, that, the other thing. So then she was like, I feel sorry for you. So she buzzed me in. I got in. I found out where Jim's office was. I walked over there. He had a personal assistant secretary. So I come up to the desk. I'm talking to her, and I tell her the story. Jim was in California a few months ago, and he told me if I was ever in New York to come here and to get a job in the bullpen, as a Ramita Raider. And so then she's like, there's nothing on the books. He's a busy guy, whatever, and once again, I must have just looked very sad. So she went in there, she talked to him. He never came out. So she talked to him, and then she comes out and she goes, he doesn't remember you or anything. And so then I was like, oh shit, what does this mean? And she goes, I, I don't know, but he doesn't remember this and all this other stuff. And so I must have just looked just devastated, right? Just like I flew all the way from California to meet with him to take this job offer that he made in California, blah blah blah. And so then she went back in. I wasn't crying, but I was probably close to it. And so then she comes back out after a couple minutes, and then she says, she says, Jim still doesn't remember you. And he said, there's no opening in the bullpen right now. And she said, but we could always use an intern. And I was like, oh, cool. I'll take it. And I go, what does the intern do? And she goes, pass out the mail, work in the mail room, that kind of stuff. And then, if there's an opening, you're here, you'll be the first one to get in. And so I was like, oh, that's cool. And so then I didn't know what an intern was. And I go, well, how much does it pay? She goes, interns don't get paid. And I was like, I'm so naive. I still am, but I just said, why would I work for free? I go, it's a job. Why wouldn't you pay me? And she goes, that's what interns, it's an opportunity to be in the office every day and to learn from people and stuff like that. And then, like I said, when there's an opening, you'll be the first one to get in. And so then I was like, well, what do I do in the meantime? I think I came there with $100 in my pocket. That's all I had. And so I go, well, what am I going to do in the meantime? She goes, well, I don't know. So I was still like, holy shit. But I do have to say, if it wasn't for Jim making that offer, I wouldn't have made the trek, right? So just keep that in the back of your mind, right? So anyway, I'm dejected. I'm walking out, and I'm just kind of thinking, like, what am I going to do now? And so there was a friend, his name's Art Nichols, and I knew him from California. There was kind of an East West Coast thing. So there was Rob Liefeld and myself that did the convention circuit, in Southern California, and then there was Art Adams and Art Nichols that were more Northern California, but they kind of crossed over, like the cons crossed over because we're not that far from each other. And so Art Nichols was good friends with Art Adams and would ink like a lot of Art's work, and so that's how I knew those guys. And so then he was in the office. Just you talk about just coincidence. He was in the office. I hadn't seen him in a while. So he goes, Art, what are you doing here? And I go, well, I'm trying to get work. I told him my story, and I go, so what are you doing? He goes, I'm dropping off artwork. I said, what does that mean? He goes, yeah, I'm working. I'm inking comics now. I'm working for Marvel right now, and I just dropped off some pages. So I was like, wow, that's cool. And so he said, uh, you can go to these editors and you can ask them for work. You can go into their office, knock on the door, be very polite, and ask them. So I did. I got turned down by all the editors, and so then he goes, I got to drop some stuff off at DC. You want to share a cab? It was very, very nice of him. And so I said, sure. So he got me in the DC office. Didn't have to go through all that, crying and whining and all that other stuff. And so he got me in. Long story short, showed my work to the first editor I saw was Bob Greenberger, and he gave me work. He gave me pencil work. He wanted me to start right on the Warlord, but he said, "Why don't we start you with some smaller stuff and see how you do?" So there was a Star Trek Who's Who. I did a bunch of drawings for him and turned them in, before the deadline, and then I got work at DC. And then later that night, when Craig Anderson got home, he came in and he said, "I got you work at Marvel too." So it's not great, but it's the kiddie line of comics uh, that Marvel had going in like the early '80s, and it was Inhumanoids. He goes, "You're be inking Jose Delbo on the Inhumanoids." So I had pencil work and ink work on the same day from both Marvel and DC. So the worst day turned into the best day. But it's crazy that I believed people. I believed them so much that I actually got on a plane and flew to New York City. But I started thinking about this, when Jim passed, and I was like, in a strange way, I have him to thank for getting into comics because I was nowhere close to breaking into the mainstream. Uh, you know, the West Coast was so far away from the publishing of Marvel and DC. Like they were hiring, people on the East Coast, people that live close to the offices, things like that. They weren't hiring really people from California. And so in a strange way, if Jim didn't make that offer, I wouldn't have done what I did. And if I didn't, then I would still probably be hustling, at conventions, meeting with whoever I could, things like that. So there was really no way, excuse me, there was no way I was going to really break into comic books. You know what I mean? Like, after, like I said, after Jim's passing, I really started thinking about like my connection with Shooter. And then I was like, wow, you know what I mean? Like it seemed like a bunch of mishaps and weird things that happened. But if he didn't make that offer, I wouldn't have taken him up on it. As strange and weird as it was, you know, I don't know what would have happened because I didn't really have any clear path to get there. This was it. I know it's kind of a ballsy move and it's kind of, like all in. It's like all or nothing. But I did it and it paid off. And today, I mean, it's the craziest damn thing. I would never do something even remotely close to that, but that's what I did. So thank you, Jim. Thanks for at least filling a young, aspiring artist's heart with some hope that something could happen, that I could make it in this industry, and sure as hell I did. 40 years later, I'm still working in comic books. So help art profit from tragedy. Black and white, three sins of the father. Yeah, you guys go back today. Come on. Let's see. Let me see. Art got off the bus at Penn Station and immediately put on a cowboy hat, stood in the street corner. Uh, Something like that. What's all this Jew stuff? All right, I saw something. Where was it? Where was it? Where was it? What? What? Art's last name was shortened to Tiberstein. All this Jew talk. Um, but yeah, it was good. And then the shooter stuff. What Jim Shooter doesn't remember because he was on drugs. I don't I don't think that guy did drugs. He was pretty straight laced, man. We got Jasper. Hey, what's up, Jasper? How you doing? People love the Jasper. Intern doesn't get paid. There are paid internships though, but most of the time, yeah, interns don't get paid. I was just a punk kid, man. Yep, naive. Hell Art and crew RIP. Jim Shooter, yes indeed. Sad music. I wish I had sad music. That would have been cool. The California Gang. Yeah, we were the California Gang. I didn't turn tricks. You guys with your rumors. Yeah, Cranberry. Was that Langers? Well, thanks for stopping by, brother. Appreciate it. Trying to catch up. People love the cranberries. It's sort of a young person game to get in. Yeah, I was young and stupid. Filling a young artist with hope. Filling? Wow, what the F? You are a sick man. You have a sickness, my friend. I don't know the underwear guy. Who's the underwear guy? What is all this? Oh, okay. Well, it didn't happen, so get over it. Yeah, it's kind of essential that you get paid. Like it's important, especially when you're young. Um, but yeah, so now I'm working at Marvel, and so this is the second time I met Jim face to face. The first time was at the convention, and then this time. So now I'm a working professional, and for some reason, he was going over my work. So I was in the office, so maybe one of the editors gave him, some of my pages or whatever. And so he comes out and he gives me kind of the lowdown of what um, he's looking for. Not really Marvel. I think he probably hid behind Marvel, but it was pretty much what he was looking for. So he was like, no zipatone. He said, no breaking border panels. no crossover panels, and there was a series of things that he told me that we just don't do here at Marvel. And so then, at that point, I was just kind of like, you mean you don't like them? These shouldn't be hard and fast rules. I think that you should be able to do these things. And actually, a week ago or whatever on Andy Smith's channel, on the Bros, we talked about like CB going over like similar, like there are more restrictions of comic book storytelling than they are actually like do's and like don'ts, like real don'ts. It's more of like personal, like what you like and don't like. So anyway, he's telling me this. He goes, and don't break the border panels. I don't. He goes, that's not good. He said when you go watch a movie, he said you're watching it on a screen or TV. It's a screen, and everything is self-contained. Everything is within that that box. And I was like, okay. I said, but what if you could break free of that box? What if you were watching a movie and Superman could fly off the screen? Would you not do that? I still remember this like it was yesterday. I said, "Wouldn't you do that?" I said, so to me, like if a character's flying out of a panel, they're like flying at you. They're flying out of the box, right? And he goes, "Well, that's destroying the immersive storytelling. That takes the reader out of the story." And so then I was like, "But it's pretty cool." Right? Like if you could have things like 3D wise flying out of the screen, I said, wouldn't you do it? I mean, if you do it right, and there's still going to be ways that are more successful than others, but you would probably do it. And why wouldn't you? If I don't know, Steven Spielberg or George Lucas could have things flying off the screen, I think they'd do it. Um, they take advantage of that technology. So anyway, I do remember just, and then Zipatone and all that stuff. I just remember he told me all that stuff and said I shouldn't do it. And at that point, I didn't listen to him. I still did whatever I wanted to do. And I was never fired and I was never lectured or yelled at again. I was still pretty small fish at the time, so he was probably trying to, put the fear of God in me so I wouldn't do that. Creative decisions. uh, yeah, like there were a lot of people that were using Zipatone, even like Tom Palmer and Neil Adams and all those guys. But anyway, like I said, it was just kind of a personal thing with him. And like I said, I still did it. I still used Zipatone. I still used breaking border panels and overlapping and all that other stuff. And then, of course, in the 90s, on the X books and stuff, we were breaking all kinds of rules, but Shooter wasn't there at the time. I think it was DeFalco. So I worked a brief period of time, under Jim Shooter's leadership, and I must say it was good. I liked it was like a family. Whenever you went into the office, people helped you. I got lessons from Carl Potts, from what is it, Walter Simonson, lots of different people, and it was great. It was great. It was like a family. I think once the 90s hit and the money started, there was a division and there was like a battle for control. And so there were different dynamics going on at the time. The good thing is, I was on the top of the food chain when that was happening, so I wasn't really affected by too much of it. Um, but let me see, what is this? So in a roundabout way, you owe Jim Shooter for your Toyota Celica and your house. CB is a clown, and they need a shooter to change the company again. Boring Hawkeye versus dynamic burn Hawkeye. Yeah, you brought that to light during the Bros show, and I do appreciate it. Um, yeah, I worked at DC too, so it wasn't all just Jim Shooter. And he wasn't paying me out of his pocket, Joe. I was earning it. I was working my ass off. Yeah, soft rule versus hard rule. Yeah, but he was a hard rule guy. So there was his way or kind of the highway. That's how he presented things. So I could see him rubbing people the wrong way. Terror Wombat, I got the sense that Jim wanted buy the book from Marvel for licensing, etc. Innovative stuff should go to Epic or New Universe. Possibly. I mean, he was a smart guy, so he probably had his reasons, but you know, it is what it is. And like one of the people, was it John Berner or somebody said that at the time, his first couple years at Marvel is what Marvel needed. And so it was good. But after that, like his ego got the better of him and he started kind of just micromanaging. I think that's what it is. Like when you go and you talk to somebody the way he did me, that's like micromanaging. And that's a personal preference versus like a creative way to express yourself or the story. And so those are the things like that I had a problem with because I think like you should be able to tell the story the way you want to tell the story. I think there are good and bad ways to tell a story. There's like technical ways, textbook ways, things for clarity, stuff like that. But that kind of wasn't what he was talking about. It was more aesthetics. And so yeah, I just thought it was kind of BS. Let's see, Randy, number one Marvel fan, Art mentioned it, was in Humanoids for the Star. Yeah, it was the Star Kitty line. Yeah. It was cool, man. I got all the toys too when I got back from New York. In front of my apartment was boxes of toys. Those toys were big, man. I had like boxes and boxes of toys. It was pretty cool. Randy says Shooter would never let Marvel get this banned. I agree. I agree. Yeah, because I think they're making decisions that are more. They're not like good comic book decisions. They're not good storytelling decisions. They're not good character decisions. They're basically it's basically propaganda. They're trying to, I don't know. It's kind of like the new universe, right? It's like trying things that are like seemingly contemporary, seemingly hip, to try to get a new audience or whatever it is. To be honest, I don't know why they're doing it to begin with, but anyway, if we take it at like that, face value, uh, it's a bad move. It's not working. The sales aren't reflecting positivity. Reviews are horrible. So, it seems like they would have abandoned that years ago, but, I think that they're probably still getting some kind of subsidies, some kind of bank subsidies or whatever it is. Let's see. Randy House says modern Marvel is addicted to the message. Comics are now pamphlets. Yeah, yeah. I don't read comic books at all. I don't go to comic shops. I don't really read anything. When we first moved here, I started going to some of the local stores, um, but I didn't really find anything that was that interesting. So you know, I don't really buy or read comics. I'll like pull out old stuff, and I'll kind of read it. I got some of my wasn't it's not a great story, but I got some of my older books. I got the House of M trade, and I got this book. Speaking of older books that are really good reads, Black and White Volume 1 is a dynamite read. You can get it on Indiegogo right now. Click the link. Let me see. Tara Wombat says, from the owners of Marvel, he saw his job was to preserve the IPs for Underoos action figures, puffy stickers, because they wanted that DC had that market. Yeah, they wanted what DC had. Yeah, like Purify, but at the same time, there was like the Frank Miller stuff coming up. So if you were trying to market Daredevil to children, that run was not kid friendly. Art, you don't owe anyone your talent and work ethic made everything happen for you. I remember when I saw your X-Men fill in and was blown away from your art talent. I didn't miss a beat. It didn't miss a beat from the gym. From the Jim Lee. A lot of gyms in comics. Jasper, Plan 9. There's less messaging in new comics. Trump won. Things are better. Well, let's hope. Let's hope it stays as well. The Dwarf 14. I wasn't there, obviously, but I wonder if Shooter implemented certain storytelling rules for young artists so they could learn the basics. If it was that, I actually learned more of the basic stuff from working with Mike Carlin, actually. So they learned the basics once they got. I think that was probably the idea. And there was a lot of tutoring, in the early days. Like I said, when you go into Marvel, editors knew that you were new, and so they would kind of give you a heads up every once in a while. Have characters enter from the left to the right because that's how we read. Also, it makes a character look faster, like they're moving faster, things like that. So there were like rules that you learn over the years from different editors and different artists that you're working with. A lot of it by observation. You kind of do it and you learn as you go. So there was a lot of that. Tara Wombat says no one was trying to market Daredevil to children. Blind kids don't read. I was a kid and I read Daredevil. I love that Daredevil. The early stuff I got. I think I have the first 30 books all in a row. So from 1 to 30, starting with the Wallywood stuff. Let me see. I'm gonna start wrapping this up. My throat isn't holding up, man. I'm getting dry. So let me see. I got a book, and you can support this bad boy. It is called Black and White. Sins of the Father. This is volume 3. We got through 3 of them. So the epic adventure continues. And we are at 35 and 9 or 893, 506 backers. Pretty good. We are stone's throw away from 36. So if we could get a backer or two, that would be amazing today. Here is a rundown of the new. Yeah, so starting off my humble beginnings, getting beat down by Jim Shooter, all the way to running my own publishing company, comics book company called Hack Shack Comics. So I am presenting my my company is presenting my book. Sins of the Father, you guys. This is going to be the origin story, backstory of Reed Blackett, aka Black. Issue 1 and 2 were pretty much Whitney Sung, aka White's origin story, and the team story. So this one's going to focus more on Reed's backstory and furthering the team, like continuing the team in an ongoing way. So that is Sins of Father. It's going to be it's a two-part story, volume 3 and 4. So this is 3. We are starting off this epic. So here's some of the interiors. I did, let me see. I just posted some in the updates. They're kind of small, but if you guys come by, make sure you hit the update so you can see some of the new pages. So I think these are as good as anything that Marvel is doing right now in DC. So I think this competes really well with the Marvel books. So it's not amateur hour here. There's 40 years that went into the making of the style of what I'm doing right now. So never look back. And all those experiences, hanging with Jim Shooter, all the different editors, artists that gave me advice over the years, all went into making me who I am today. So I thank everybody, especially Jim Shooter, right now, since we are kind of, remembering Jim, and kind of celebrating his contribution to the industry. So also, I mentioned this a little bit earlier. This is volume 2 or issue 2 of the High Octane Adventure. This is the book that Pedro Ang and I put together, and we're into the second issue. The first issue did so well in the last campaign that we're bringing it back. Pedro has finished pretty much. I got a couple notes that I gave him last night, but pretty much the book is done. Pencils, inks, and coloring. So we just got to letter it up and get it off to the printer. So things are moving along. Black and White 3, the main book, is halfway done. So things are moving along, you guys. So here's some of the interiors. Pedro is recoloring these. So as soon as I get some of those pages, I'll replace these and show you some of the new coloring. It looks fantastic. So you have 4 covers to choose from. The A, B, those are me and Kyle Ritter on colors. And then we got Carlo Barberi on the C cover, and then John Malin on the D cover. So, yeah, I'm still majorly taken aback by having these 2 brilliant artists contribute to this campaign. Absolutely fantastic. Carlo's a buddy from way back. And John Malin, actually, I met years ago before CG. He was working at Image Comics, and I was doing the first Chrono Mechanics. So I think he just wanted to meet me and to come by the studio. That was Hack Shack Studios. And so he hand delivered the proofs, I think, for Chrono Mechanics, the black and white image version of the book, and hung out for a while. He's just a cool guy. I didn't remember him till CG, and we started hanging out. And he's like, "We met before." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I came by your Hack Shack Studios and brought by some of the make readies or whatever for Chrono Mechanics." And I was like, "Oh shit!" And as soon as he said that, I was like, "I remember you now." So good guy. John's a good guy. And so here is a bigger version of the B cover. This is the villains cover. So we got Lord Faken, the immortal Lord Faken, and then we got Juju, who is a Valdoon priestess and uses tech to raise the dead. So she's kind of supernatural meets technology. So there's a lot of fun stuff we're doing with these characters. So it's not just like traditional immortal or like voodoo priestess. It's like with supernatural twist to it. So those are the 2 main bads. in this issue, there is a better version of Carlo and my cover, and then of course John Malin. So we do have some original stuff. We just actually sold one of the interior pages. I got to put a new one up so you guys can, if you want some original artwork, you can back that. So we have 4 covers, but the B cover has been sold. So we just have the 3 covers. And then, of course, the only place you can get the 11x17 print of Juju is in the Jam tier. And the Jam tier has everything. It has all the books, plus, well, it doesn't have the D. It doesn't have the D cover, but you can get that as an add-on. So just to go through the books real quick, you can have the featured, which is all the new books for this this campaign. So all of them except for the John Malin cover. Like I said, you can get that as an add-on. But when I posted this originally, that's all I had. I didn't have the John cover. So that came later. So we got the High Octane 2. That's the new High Octane 22-page one and done adventure done by the great Pedro Ang. And then we have the main cover A here. And then we have the B cover, which is doing very, very well. I think you guys like the B artwork. And then we have the C, which is the Carlo Barberi. Also, you can get all these covers as add-ons. So you can combine them with whatever tier you back. And then, of course, the John Malin, which is a close runner-up to the B cover. Not quite there yet. Sorry, John, but you did come in later, just to be fair. You can get 1 and 2 of the High Octane Adventures. Those are the 22-page one and dones. And they're limited because we only printed so many of issue 1. So we got to make them limited. And then you can get the main book for this campaign and the High Octane 2 as a jam. You can get some of the back issues here, you guys, very limited. You can get 1, 2. Those are like, if you get 1 and 2, that will be a complete story. That's the origin of Whitney storyline, and then you can get the new issue 3 with that, and then of course the jam, which I was talking about. Yeah, all the books print, main cover. Yeah, it's all there except for the John Malin. And then here's some of the original pages or the original covers, you guys. So so get in here. If you see something you like, back it. We are halfway done with the main book, and we are finishing up the High Octane Adventure with Pedro Ang. So everything's looking good, you guys. Thank you so much for backing. Thank you so much for supporting. If you've already backed, if I could ask, maybe tweet this out, exit out, share it on your social media, and help get the word out. Guerrilla marketing is pretty much all my budget calls for. Yeah. So let's see. Looks like we got some new people in here. I don't remember thanking you, Andino. Oh, cool. Thanks. House of Bar says 1 and 2 was good. Looking forward to the new one. This new one is freaking amazing. Yeah, they're getting better and better. Thank you so much, Randy. How you did not have to do this. You're earning your keep with the wrench. A lot of campaigns have a buy a drink tier. You should add one buy art a fish tier. I'll write it down. I'll run it by Pamela. Buy art a fish. How much? I guess they can add whatever, right? Or is it a set amount? Sean says, stunning art, thank you, man. Right back at you. If you guys have not subscribed to Sean and Jetty's channel on YouTube, go do it. Do it now. Do it now. Sign up. Hit that bell. Hit the notifications. Get in there. Art doesn't remember Malin like Jim Shooter remembers first meeting Art. Um, Jim Shooter remembers first. He doesn't. Oh, I get it. That was mean. That was very mean. How dare you? We got Oni64. Shout out to the Woodlands. Yeah. The weekend was nice. Yesterday was a little hotter. Today seems like it's going to be a little hotter too. Spring ball. Yeah, this is Sean's new campaign. Hit that. Hit that. Go back a book. Pick up a book. Back this stunner. Hell yeah. Back this stunner. Back them all. Back them twice. Do. Teacher's pet. Do. Art, did you get the new pull pump in? No. What I did is the old one broke down, so I went to price new pumps. Freaking outrageous. They're expensive, right? So I could get one of those those robot cleaners, those Polaris, for less money than I could the pump, and also I wouldn't have had to install it. So what I did is I bought the robot Polaris cleaner. You only have to drop that thing in like 3 times a week. It cleans like crazy. And it's like 2.5 hours, like 2.5 hours if you do the walls and everything. Like you can put it in for an hour and it'll clean the bottom of the pool. Like it's really, really efficient, and it takes less power than the pump. And also I figured out how to reroute the PVC. So I just basically cut the old pump out and then rerouted the PVC. So it didn't have to go through the pump. So it redirected. I have to say, mission accomplished. Everything turned out good. I'm always amazed when I can do some of these weekend warrior stuff and it actually works. I don't call anybody anymore, because when we first moved out here, I was calling people to fix things and they didn't know what the hell they were doing, right? So I remember like some valves, some sprinkler valves. I called this guy in. Yeah, I know how to do it, whatever. He dug up all the wiring in my yard and did all this crazy shit. Took him all day. I think he had to come in the next day to finish it, and it still didn't work. So I did a little bit of, looking around on the internet, and I'm like, I could do this. So I just changed the valves. I just dug down, found the valves, dug them out, cut the PVC, put the new one in, rerouted all the wiring, and boom, it's worked brilliant ever since. Like, that's just one example. We've had several of these guys, supposedly experts, coming in and fixing stuff. I had some guy before I changed out. This was a little work. I have a whole new pool system. I have to pat myself on the back for. But it's the filtering system, and it was this what is it called? It's some weird system, and I couldn't tear it apart and clean it because it was just too complex. So I used to have to call people in. So I called this one guy in and tore it apart, cleaned it up, acted like he knew what he was doing, and then he went to put it back together. He couldn't get it back together. That's the whole reason I called this guy, right? Because that's the part I can't do. I can tear it apart. I can't put it back together because it's not locked in. Like there's like a lot of wiggle room, and there's almost like you have to put it together by feel, and experience. And this guy couldn't get it, and I'm out there at what point I'm looking at him, and he's like tweaking stuff, and he's like muscling things down, and I'm like, no, 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 no. It's not the way it's done. I've seen it done, and it's done this way. And I said, you need to turn it upside down. And then those, what are they called? Like fins or ribs, they all kind of fit together. He goes, no, no, no. And I go, yes. And I said, just to make sure I'm telling the truth, I'm gonna go upstairs and I'm gonna find a video and I'm gonna find it and you can watch it if you don't trust me. So I watched the video just to make sure that I was 100% correct. And when I went back down, he and his assistant had flipped it over and got it to work. So I'm like, who's the expert? I know more about this stuff than you do. you know so I after that I just ditched the whole system and put in a different filtering system, so I didn't have to mess with that stuff, and I can tear it apart and I can clean it and I can put it back together, so I don't have a problem anymore. But my gosh, I think just about every person we hired to do stuff from the time we moved in, except for the fence. No, the fence guy actually cut the gas line when they were putting in the post. So we had a gas leak for 3 hours. We had the fire department out and, making sure nobody's lighting a cigarette around the gas and making sure everything's good. And I'm like, aren't you going to evacuate these homes? He goes, no. Talking to the fireman, "Oh, no." And I'm like, if this gas went up, it would take this whole cul-de-sac, right? He goes, yeah, because it's all connected. Like the gas will just blow everything to smithereens. He goes, yeah. And I go, shouldn't you evacuate? Why are we standing here? I think they stand there like they don't want to freak people out, right? So they don't want to cause a scene. So I guess they think like, well, if we stand here and we're willing to die, then everybody else is. Because I was just thinking, like, what if there was enough gas and it just filled the air, and then somebody lit their fire pit or their gas range or something? What the hell would have happened? What would happen then? Hey, Rachel Brinkley. Dang. Yeah. Dang indeed. Past message says Texas buries everything, but never checks their work. I used to lay cable, but we snag stuff all the time. Lazy installers. Oh my gosh. They they say you got to have the gas company out before you dig anything because nobody knows where the hell these gas lines are. And also, I don't know what these gas lines are made out of. Like in California, they were metal. So if you hit a gas line, it wasn't good, but you didn't sever it. You know what I mean? Here they're like PVC, or they're like it's like flex tube or some crazy shit, right? I think it is like a flex tube, and you can cut right through that stuff with a shovel, and they sure as hell did. And I had some guys cut my cable when they were digging around, putting in a drain, and just all kinds of stuff. So I just do everything myself, you know. The only thing I'll hire people is like it's hard for me to lift things and stuff, like a lot of the muscle stuff because of my back. So I'll hire like people to lift things and move things and stuff like that. That's about it. Otherwise, I do everything. This is the most aggressive remembrance stream. Art details how he received instructions from Jim and discarded the rules. Remembers John Malin as a small guy and mocks how John's cover hasn't sold. Well, I guess if you want to frame it up like that, but that's not quite the way it went down. Um, John is a great artist. He's the second best-selling cover in the campaign. Um, and Jim Shooter, I probably wouldn't be in comics right now if it wasn't for Jim Shooter. So I gave them praise. Gas metal can rupture as well. I've never, as long as I've lived in California, I've never seen that happen. And apparently, gas lines here, it's kind of an everyday occurrence. PVC is better, but I think this stuff is like a flex line. PVC, if you're careful and you hit it, you can bypass it. But if you're just like those guys, they were just boom, 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 digging hard. You could go right through a PVC as well. You know why I know? Because I've done it. All right, you guys. Well, yeah, Jim Shooter, like I said, I wouldn't be in this industry if it wasn't for him. In a strange way, he got me to New York City and opened that door for me. I did a lot of kind of helping that door open, but it got me there. And for that, it's great. I do think the advice he gave me was all bullshit, but you know what? It is what it is, right? He believed in me enough after that to, I worked there. I worked there for decades, so I lasted longer than he did at Marvel. But anyway, yeah, I mean, he left us too soon. He's done some great work for this industry. I outlined some of that stuff. So today, if you guys have any Jim Shooter comics, bust them out, read them, enjoy his work, and just know that there are a bunch of people like Jim Shooter that helped build this industry, and we will always be thankful for that. So Jim, rest in peace. I hope you're in a better place, and thanks for all the great work you've done. So you guys take care. Before I sign off, the professionals tonight on my channel, and we're going to talk about indie comics. Not so much a deep dive, but we're going to get into like all the different publishing companies over the years, because I started just doing just a little bit of research and thinking about like, First Comics, Epic, or no, what was it? Eclipse Comics, Pacific Comics, and of course the ones that are still around like Image and Dark Horse and things like that, CrossGen, all these different you know, publishing companies and the great characters that came out of those. There's been a lot of great characters. You tend to think Marvel, DC, those are the only iconic characters, but there's was it Howard Chaykin's Flag. There's Mike Mignola's Hellboy. There's Todd McFarlane's Spawn. There's a ton of, there's Rocketeer, came out Pacific, Dave Stevens. There's a lot of great, not just independent publishers, but also IP characters that came out of that. So we're going to talk about that, and it'll be interesting to see what the other guys have to say. So if you don't know, Bros is it's a traveling show. We go to different channels, and so this week is mine to host. So it's Graham Nolan, Billy Tucci, Andy Smith. There's Aaron Lepresti, and of course myself. And so tonight's mine, and so I'm going to host it. And like I said, we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive, I guess, into Kamiko. I'm going to write that one down. Forgot about that. Yeah, so we'll do as much as Nexus is one. We'll do as much. Of course, the Ninja. Oh my gosh, yeah. See, it's going to be a great show. There's so many places we could go. It'll be a lot of fun, and that's on my channel tonight. And let me see, what time is it? It's 7 Eastern Standard Time, I believe. So come by. If you guys haven't Hit that bell for notifications and like this video on your way out. And I'll see you later tonight, you guys. Take care. Thanks for the super chat, too.